Hi guys, this video is all about different roasting level and types of coffee grind. First, different roasting level. Roasting within the four categories, you are likely to find common roasts as listed below. As coffee roasts get dark, they lose the original flavor of the bean and take on more flavor from the roasting process. Consequently, caffeine moderately decreases as the roast time increases. Regardless of roast level, all roasts will differ in taste. Two coffee varieties grown in different environments are likely to taste different even when roasted to the same level. So it is important to try a variety of coffee to find what best suits for your taste. So light roast. Intended to preserve a coffee bean's natural aromas and flavor, light roasts represent the preferred choice of most specialty coffee community. They also tend to have a brighter flavor profile than darker roasts. With a dry, not oily texture, this bean typically reach about 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit and just barely obtain the first crack stage. Roasters typically refers to varying degrees of light roast as light city, half city, cinnamon. Medium roast. While medium roast still preserve a coffee bean's natural aroma and flavor, they usually replace the brightness procedure in a light roast with a sweet caramelization created by a longer roast time. This longer roast time also reduces the acidity and bright notes typically found in light roast coffee. These beans remain fairly dry and rarely look oily. Raised to temperature of between 400 and 430 degrees Fahrenheit, they typically pass the first crack stage, while never fully reach for the second crack. Roaster typically refers to varying degrees of medium roast as city, American, breakfast. Dark roast. At this level, the taste of roast itself replaces the coffee bean's natural occurring aromas and flavor. This creates a bold, heavy flavor profile with low acidity with an oily dark brown appearance. These beans normally reach the second crack stage at temperature of between 430 and 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Roaster typically refers to varying degrees of dark roast as full city, Vienna, so dark roast coffee refers to as New Orleans Italian, French, and continental feature bean roast. To such a dark level that no trace of the coffee original flavor remains. These beans have a high oily content, a glossy appearance, and typically taste ashy. Specialty coffee shop don't use this roast level. The bean can be an oily surface. Here is a quick breakdown of different types of coffee grind and what they are most likely to be used for. Keep scrolling to the bottom for a specially deal on our coffee grinders. Grind for French press. Coarse grind. French roasted coffee beans, whole beans, coffee French roast, mocha pot, espresso beans, brewing coffee with a French press required a coarse, even grind. A coarse ground will look somewhat chunky because the coffee is dipped in boiling water. The contact time between the water and coffee is much longer, which required a coarser grind. Grinding the coffee to coarse will make the coffee weak. Grinding to fine will make the coffee murky and taste better. Grind for up, pour over. Grind pour over medium coarse grind. Roshi, whole beans, freshly roasted coffee beans, made to order fresh coffee, coffee beans for espresso, coffee beans for French press, coffee beans for pour over coffee, the best grind to taste, used in a medium coarse grind. A medium coarse grind will be similar in size to a French fresh grind, but less chunky and while peel slightly smoother. If you are using a cone shape pour over, then use a medium fine coffee grind instead. Since there are many different pour over brewers, each one will need a slightly different grinds. You may need to experiment a bit more with this method until you find what tastes best for you. Keep in mind, the less time the water is in contact with the coffee grind, the finer the grind should be. Grind for a siphon coffee maker, medium. Siphon coffee requires a medium grind size between a filter and espresso but closer to the filter size. Siphon coffee maker typically use a cloth of metal filter, producing a full body and clean cup. You don't want to grind to find that they clog the filter, and you don't want them to be big. If the grind are too big, flavor will be lacked as it is a quick brewing process. Learning how to make siphon coffee. Grind for a stovetop espresso maker, fine grind. Grocery whole bean freshly roasted coffee bean, made to order fresh coffee, coffee beans for espresso, coffee beans for French press, coffee beans for pour over. For stove top espresso maker, use a fine coffee grind. A fine grind will be similar in size, filled to the sugar. A fine grind will be similar in size and filled to that of sugar. It should also be slightly coarser than a grind used for a regular espresso maker. Fine grind is required because of the short time the coffee grind comes into contact with water. Pressure build-ups in the espresso maker, which force the water through the fine grind. If you were to use a coarse grind, the water would not be able to extract the flavor from the beans. Due to this, espresso is the most sensitive of coffee types, which comes to the size of the grind of the coffee and brewing good coffee. If the grind is just slightly finer or coarser, it can drastically affect the end taste of the espresso. Grind for Turkish coffee maker, extra fine. Grocery whole bean, freshly roasted coffee beans, made to order fresh coffee, coffee beans for espresso, coffee beans for French press, coffee beans for pour over. Turkish coffee is essentially very strong coffee with fine grinds in it. Based on the description alone, it's a no-brainer that this kind of coffee requires an extra fine grind. To give you an idea of size, the coffee grind should resemble powder sugar, making it even finer than what use espresso. The grind need to be so fine that some grinders can even accommodate Turkish coffee. So when you're looking for a coffee grinder, make sure it has the proper setting. Should Turkish coffee be your coffee of choice?